Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Gutierrez, and welcome to season 2 of the Geek Press podcast. On episode 22, I am joined with my co host, Noah Garcia, and we're talking everything Hispanic Heritage Month. We're talking about what it means to us to be Hispanic. We're talking about proper representation in media. We even recommend a bunch of good Hispanic, representation in media. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform, be sure to leave us a good review. Now, without further ado, here's episode 22. Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Gutierrez, and welcome to episode 22 of the Geek Press podcast. Just like I said, we be back next week, and next week turned into a longer hiatus than expected. But yeah, we are here finally, and we're going to talk about Hispanic Heritage Month with my co-host Noah Garcia. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, it's Noah Garcia. I don't know what you're talking about. Didn't we record last week? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I remember talking about
Oh yeah,
like
did we
what
record last week?
yeah, we had Rudy on the show. We talked about Spider-Man, we talked about Titans, Games
Yeah, we're
Kong.
not. We're not. Yeah, no, I don't. We record. It was fresh in my mind. I don't know what you're talking about. We're very reliable. We're very good. And yes, I am here. It's very great to be back. I have to get back into the swing of things because I automatically was stricken with fear the moment you said, "Here's my co-host," and I was like, "Oh God, how do I speak? What do I say?" So, hello, how is everyone doing? You can't respond to me, but hi.
So yeah, we just want to talk about, like I said, Hispanic Heritage Month started a couple days ago. What's today? As of recording, today is the 17th. So Hispanic Heritage Month started on the 15th, if I'm correct, right, Noah? He's nodding yes for everyone. And
Yes, on the 15th of Thursday.
yeah, the 15th of Thursday, it,
And as
it kicked
record
off.
date, we're recording a Saturday after, so it's very fresh in our minds.
And at least for me, I'm gonna get a little bit personal right here. Representation and like getting in touch with my roots is something I've been, as of recently, getting more and more in touch with, and like seeing the value of it. Like I wouldn't say I was ignorant of it, but I just something I never really gave much thought of. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was just something like that. Something like that is something I often thought of, and I see, like, as I'm getting older now, I'm starting to see more and more value in that. Been a lot of, like, I guess you say, like, influencers and actors and what have you that helped kind of like shine a light for me to help like show me the goods of having proper representation and just having, like, the token Hispanic, where it's like, hey, you want to buy some tacos, or like, what's up, fool, kind of thing. Like, yeah, that shit does more harm than it does good. And if you guys are longtime listeners of the podcast, thanks for sticking out this long. And if you're new time listeners, I am a video games journalist. I mainly do like cover video games and like geeky stuff like that. My co-host here, on the other hand, is more of like a traditional journalist, if you will. Covers more of like your city politics, stuff like that. So he likes to like focuses more on, like, your more serious things, I guess you could say. And
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm all about that celebrity gossip. I'm about what Kim and Kanye Kardashians are up to. That's more my speed. So, we have both sides of the spectrum of our culture, gaming and gossip, which I feel like, that makes us a pretty rounded podcast. So I'm very happy with that. And I would definitely agree with Lewis when it's funny because when you're younger, you don't really think about Chicano heritage, Hispanic heritage, and what that kind of means to you because you're just a kid. You know what I mean? Because when people say representation matters, you don't really you kind of are aware of it when you're younger, but you don't truly understand what that means until you get older. So it's
Hmm.
kind of just something you grow into. So I think that's very interesting.
And also, too, what I was also gonna say is that Noah and I are both avid comic book readers. He reads a lot more than I do, and there was a character he helped put on my radar way back when we met in community college. His this character is a Marvel character. His name is Robbie Reyes. For those who are unaware of Robbie Reyes, he is basically like, I don't want to say the most recent, but like the most recent mainline Ghost Rider. Because before it used to just be Johnny Blaze, And for people who are unaware, Johnny Blaze is a motorcyclist. He's like a daredevil, if you will, like kind of like an evil Knievel esque kind of guy doing all sorts of crazy shit. And white boy, you know. But Robbie Reyes, on the other hand, born and raised in what was it, South Central, right, Noah?
Yeah, exactly.
Born
He
and
was
raised in
born in kid. He's just this young Mexican kid that has no parents. He's an orphan. He takes care of his special needs brother, and it's this thing where you get to see him kind of navigate. It would be so easy to fall into gang life. It'd be incredibly easy. Like they display that in the comic, which I you can't see, but I have it here. His first run, and but he has his little brother to take care of. So it's a very interesting look at South Central that you feel like you often more than not you get to see like glamorized versions of like East LA of South Central of places, and it's still like, oh, they still try to make it urban and stuff, but it's this book just feels very real, if that makes any sense.
yeah, and it's just like that was like amongst the first times I really started to really notice. Granted, he wasn't the first like Hispanic superheroes. There's been a lot. Like another one that comes to mind is Jaime Reyes, who Blue Beetle. He's been around a little bit longer. But it's just like you said, as a kid, at least for I don't want to speak on behalf of like all Hispanics and stuff, but at least for me, it wasn't really too much of a big deal because I'd watch cartoons. I'd be like, oh yeah, Spider Man, yeah, Goku, stuff like that, and I turn on the cartoons, anime, what have you, and it just wasn't really much of a thought. And I think a big part of that has to do because I'm like third, fourth generation already. So, and it's usually it's like that saying. It's like the further you are from the first generation, the more like disconnect you start to become, which isn't necessarily your fault. It's just the environment you're brought up in, and that's why like it wasn't too much of a big deal for me. But now as I'm getting older, I've been talking to my girlfriend more about this. I'm like, um, it was like around a little bit around this time last year. Again, I'm just gonna get a little bit personal, just to kind of give people an idea of like where my mindset was. I was going through a bit of an identity crisis a little bit, where I I was like, huh, yeah, I'm by all means I'm Mexican. My last name's Gutierrez. You look at me, you're like, yep, that dude's Mexican. But I know very minimal Spanish. I know like the basics of Mexican history and all that, and I'm just like, shit, like, am I Mexican? Like, yeah, I'm Mexican, but am I Mexican? If that kind of makes sense. And it's just like I had some talks with some like really insightful friends. One of them, he was my mentor in this program I was in called Latinx in Gaming. If you guys are trying to break into the gaming community, or one like the developer side or like the professional end of it, that's a great program. I highly recommend it. My mentor, his name is Danny Pena. He was the founder of Gamertag Radio. He's a really really sweet guy, and he kind of like told me too. He was like, don't feel like you're a phony, like even though if you don't know like a lick of Spanish, you are Hispanic. You are a part of that bridge that connects Hispanic culture to every other culture. So like yeah, just throwing that out there. Like if you're like someone like in my position where it's like shit. All of my Mexican friends say, "Oh, you're the whitest Mexican I know," which I'm pretty sure a good chunk of Hispanic people have heard that. Uh, don't feel bad. You're Hispanic nonetheless, and just because you don't really know too much about like your culture, it's not like a bad thing. Just educate yourself. It's never too late to learn, and the whole reason
But
why.
it's never too late to watch movies, to read, to study history.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what you say is interesting about like, oh, whitest Mexican I know, because I've although I am not that light skinned, you can see a bit of darkness in me. My soul is like I'm a total coconut. I'm dark on the outside. I'm so white on the inside. Hot Cheetos are spicy for me. First of all, I need to get the lightest salsa. So there I go referring to food, which is something we'll talk about later. But it's just something you have to deal with, and I think that's interesting with Hispanic heritage because there's lots of Chicanos, but Chicano is explicitly people that are from Mexico and then they're born in the United States. So, but Hispanic encompasses all the Spanish speaking countries all the way down south. So that's kind of like more so encompassing of all people because not every person that speaks Spanish is from Mexico. You
Hmm.
know, there's lots of countries underneath there, and I feel like a lot of people just think like, "Oh, Mexico and Brazil, South America." Like you don't think of how many
Hmm.
little individual countries are down there. So Hispanic heritage does really encompass a lot of different people.
Yeah, I know I've been kind of like rambling a lot right now. Do you want to kind of give a little bit of your personal experiences and whatnot before we dive into like the more of like meat of the podcast?
My personal experience is I think has been very interesting because I've been surrounded by, you know, Mexican and Hispanic Spanish culture for a lot of my life, but I just I've always felt weird about engaging with it. Like I'll watch it from a side. For instance, like I have plenty of, Mexican and Spanish singers on my phone. I have no idea what they're saying, but I like the
Yeah,
beat, so I listen.
yeah.
And there are things like years I'll put up ofrendas, for Dia de los Muertos, and I have no idea if there's any prayers or I should say something. I just kind of put it up because I want to engage, and I have friends that speak Spanish. I, in fact, had a whole thing last week. I went out with a friends of mine, and basically we were getting brunch, and it was at this Spanish restaurant, and the guy looks at me and he starts talking to me because I'm the darkest one there. But then my friend, you know her, Sandra, she had to speak up and she started talking. And I was like, I was feeling so embarrassed because the guy went to me first and started talking and saying stuff. And I was like, hola, ¿cómo estás, hermano? And I was like, that's the best I could do. It's the best I could do. And he was like rattling off menu items.
it's it's always it's always like a weird feeling like that where it's like you go to a Mexican restaurant and stuff and you're just like, damn.
You're just like, damn, I feel like I should be able to interact here more, but I gotta be like, can I have the quesadilla?
Yeah, there's there's a taco place near my
Mhm.
house, and I love it. They make bomb ass food, and I felt really bad because it was two workers, they're both Hispanic, and I was talking to one of them, and he kind of like I forgot what I obviously I don't know what he said, but from context clues I could put together that he didn't really speak English, so he kind of like signaled to me like, hold on, I'm gonna go call my other buddy, and his other buddy like spoke like fluent English, and I was like, "Fuck, I need," you know. And there was also like another Mexican restaurant I went to, and he like my girlfriend's white, and it just in situations like that, they automatically go to me because it's just human nature. You
Yeah,
stick
they
to
just
what you
assume
know,
they're just like, "Oh, this
hmm
guy looks like he should be able to speak my language."
and I'm just like, oh god, I'm sorry.
I get that. When I used to work legally, I worked at Walmart for a bit, and people would come up to me all the time assuming I spoke Spanish, and I'd be like, I have to get another cashier because I have no idea what you're going on about." And it's just like you see a person's face drop, and sometimes you'll get disappointment, sometimes you get surprised, other times you'll get annoyance. Like, "Ugh, like, how dare you?" And then they go off or you get some a friend or something. So it's just something you have to encounter daily. I feel like sometimes if you go out a lot, which I don't, but it's something I'm aware of, you know?
Hmm. And it's just like not I'm not trying to like shit on like the Hispanic culture or anything like that, but it's just like there are gatekeeping in about just about every culture. I've heard it with like in Asian communities, Black communities, Hispanic communities, all the other communities in between. It's like, oh, you're too this, you're not too much of us, and it's just something I think it's it's one of those comfort feelings where it's like, oh, okay, we all kind of go through the same shit. So like, don't feel bad like if you are Hispanic because just there's another person of another cultural community that's probably experiencing something like that too. But it's
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
I
And
don't
I
really
was
know I
literally
was going too much with that.
And I saw a TikTok I saw a TikTok the other day where it was, one of those on the street confessionals, and they're just like, "Oh, we confess something," and the girl's like, "Oh, I can't." And
Mm,
he's like, "What did it?" And she's like, "Oh, can I confess it in Spanish?" And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then she went on like a whole tirade, and the interviewer was like, "Oh, I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me." I dug through those comments. There was tons of Spanish speaking people that's like, "I'm not telling you shit. I'm sorry." Like there was no translation. And there were even people comments being like, "I'm just looking for a translation and no one's putting it down." Yeah, they weren't saying anything. So it can be very gatekeeping because I just wanted to know what that girl said. But no one was spilling the beans.
but You know, the whole the whole reasoning why we're bringing this up is just because even if you are like by all like means like super Hispanic, like you know the history, you know the culture, you know the language through and through. You are just as Hispanic as someone who doesn't know any of that, but they are still of Hispanic Latino descent. Like doesn't make you any less or more. That's the point we're trying to get
Yeah.
to right now.
Knowledge does not validate your identity more than others. It simply just makes you more aware of it.
Hmm.
I think
And
that's something that needs to be hit on the head.
yeah, and it's like one of the key things is too. It's just like never forget who you are and all that. Like at your core you are an Hispanic person. I am at my core I am a Mexican American. And it's important to not forget that. Don't ever try to act like you are of like something you're not. Just accept who you are, and that's sometimes that takes
Mhm.
time. Sometimes it's easier said than done. But
This has been
um,
a PSA from Lewis and Noah.
da-da-da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da. This is a
But yeah.
little rainbow appearing. Did you know? Okay, so what's the meat? You mentioned some meat
Hmm.
earlier.
So like I don't remember if I hinted on it too much in the beginning, but we wanted to talk about like representation in media. And we talked about Robbie and then got completely sidetracked to this. So yeah,
Yeah, we
that
started and then just went down a tirade. We
yeah,
start, we get on topic, get off topic.
but it's all still within the same vein of still like so I don't think we got too much off topic, but yeah, there's stuff like that. w- or what like medias would you recommend, or like what like Hispanic, whether it be fictional characters, writers, poets, whatever, anyone that like would come to mind that you would recommend, anything that like really stands out, because I know you have your finger a lot more in the pulse than I do when it comes to some things.
Well, first of all, I feel like if you're someone who wants to get into Hispanic culture, the easiest thing you can do is just search hashtags. Just search for different uh profiles on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and there'll be a lot of information. But if you want to kind of narrow it down to more so like something you could read, something you could hold, something you could watch, the first thing that does come to mind is a book called Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. She's a female writer who writes about this young girl in 1950s Mexico who has to like solve a mystery. It's Lovecraftian light, which is I love seeing people of color do play with Lovecraftian themes because he was a horrible racist, but he very much coined the term of like cosmic horror, and he kind of like when you think of cosmic horror, you think of Lovecraft. So it's always nice to see like a person
What
of color write
what
stuff
is
about it.
Lovecraft? This isn't. I'm
H.P.
ignorant to
Lovecraft,
this.
like Cthulhu,
Hmm.
like he was the one who like thought of Cthulhu and like the idea of like
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
cosmic
Yeah. Yeah.
horror and like if you understood the universe you would go mad because the human brain was never meant to like comprehend it. Like I would say Nope was very Lovecraftian. Have you seen Nope, right?
Oh, it was a fucking
Like an
awesome
alien
movie.
coming down, like I would say that was very Lovecraftian.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Like that kind of vibe is very, so I would definitely say Silvia Moreno Garcia, Mexican Gothic. I would say 100% read that. If you want to jump into something a bit more like present in the cultural space, I would definitely say you can go to a comic book store now and pick up anything by for America Chavez. People seem to like her in the Doctor Strange movie. I wish she had gotten more attention in that movie. But I feel like you could just go to any comic book store and pick her up, and it's interesting because she is from another dimension, but she is like Latina coded, So I feel like you could pick up anything with her, and I don't think she's had a bad comic yet. She's had some weird portrayals, but I don't think she's had any like bad comics. You know what I mean?
What like particular runs would you recommend?
She has uh she has several solos of which the authors I can't remember, but there was a recent Young Avengers run by Kieran Gillen that I think should be easy to get because the very early Young Avengers, I know people are all in there. Young Avengers, when's that gonna happen? They're on their Young Avengers hype. The very early like first appearances are very hard to buy. They're very much out of print. They're not accessible. But the recent one with Kieran Gillen that that she's in, that she's first a part of the team, that's easier to purchase. So I would say you can start there.
Okay.
So
Um,
that's just something I could think of like in popular culture that people would be like, "Oh, I saw her. I can go get that."
really quick, I want to interject something. We're gonna reference a few comics here, both Marvel and DC, and I don't think DC is much, but I know Marvel has this fantastic app, which I am forgetting the name of, but it has a subscription service which I believe is like $5 a month.
Is it
Noah, you
Marvel
talk on this.
Unlimited or
Yes,
something?
yes, you
Something like
talk
that?
about this. Do you know about Marvel Unlimited?
No. I only really buy comics in their physical form, but fun fact, listeners, a lot of Marvel comics have digital codes. So if you buy the physical, you can download a digital version of it for free, which I wish DC did, but they don't. But Marvel, so I have a stack of Marvel comics that I can just download to the app and read whenever because I just write down the code, and
Okay,
that's pretty cool.
I found the prices. So Marvel Unlimited, it's a little bit on the pricier side, but they have a $10 a month subscription, or you could pay $69 a year, or then they have an exclusive kit which is like $100 a year. But what makes this particularly worth it is like comics on its own, depending on what you buy, like the medium price is like $5, give or take. And this right here, it's like if you're reading at least more than two comics a month, like if you're reading three comics a month minimum, you're getting your money's worth out of this. And you could, they have a huge library of Marvel comics, and I believe they even put like the newer ones on there too. I don't know the process of that, but if you are someone who is maybe, I don't know anyone's financial situation, but if you want to get into comics, don't really know how, and you can't afford to keep buying them print by print by print, this is a great service to do so for Marvel Comics, and there is
Mhm.
a lot of stuff too. Just throwing that out there. We're not sponsored or
And
anything.
also, I mean, just building on that, I mentioned earlier that the first run of Young Avengers is very hard to get. It's on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah,
You can
perfect.
totally just go and read it because it came out back. Sorry about the noise.
It's all good.
Uh, it came out maybe 2006, or maybe five. So it's an old run of their first appearance. So it's hard to get, but on that app you can easily just look it up and start reading because they have a lot of older stuff on there.
I
Because
think
the
he
newer
takes
stuff,
screenshots too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, he gets some cool little screenshots.
And then you can brag like, "Oh, I'm reading about the Young Avengers."
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off of that. Right now I am reading Spider-Man. I always forget his year. um, God damn it, what is
It's
it?
2099,
Yeah, there we
isn't
go.
it?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, which is the Spider-Man of the future, who is he Chicano? Is he Mexican? Or I always forget his character.
I am forgetting as well, but
Wow.
he is he has a
Wow.
Hispanic and Latino descent. So Miguel O'Hara, there doesn't get much more Hispanic and Latino than that. He
His last
is.
name could be Reyes.
That is true. The
We talked about that. A lot of characters have the last name of Reyes.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
problem with that. There's a lot more Hispanic names.
That's
But
I don't they just look up most popular like Chicano Spanish last names and they pull it up and they're like, "Oh, Reyes. Okay, that works."
so yeah, the Spider-Man series I'm reading right now is Spider-Man 2099 Exodus, and so pretty much it's about a I forget, it's either 6 or 8, but it's a mini run of Spider-Man, but this Spider-Man is in the future, and as far as I know, I don't know if it's in the 616 universe, which is the main Marvel continuity. But they live in a cyberpunk future, which like if you guys know anything about like the cyberpunk futures, like nothing is ever good. So like all the heroes are dead. He's amongst one of the only few heroes, and it's very much him fighting the establishment. Like now that I'm kind of thinking about it out loud, I'm seeing a lot of comparisons where it's the system put in place, and it's the oppressors, just shitting on people of a lesser class, and being that he's being that what's the word I'm looking for? he's being that person stepping up to the mantle and helping the little guy, which is very much of like ingrained in Spider-Man. But you can also take a lot of like there's a lot of Hispanic references, not references, but like keynotes. That's the word to use. A lot of like keynotes to take out of that too, and Miguel Harris is just a fucking badass. Like one thing I appreciate about his series is that it's just so fucking cool, you know, like seeing a fellow like Hispanic just swing around, kick ass, and just and what makes it even more cooler, like I said, is like he's one of the only heroes. So and he's like assembling this ragtag team of like leftover X-Men, leftover Avengers, whatever, like as Guardians, and it's like fuck, this guy fucks.
That sounds that does sound you sell it really well. That does sound really cool. You know, Spider-Man has always been like the average Joe's hero. So
Hmm.
just put him in that predicament where he has to like fight against the man and that's pretty cool. I enjoy that. I've really only read him like guest appearances in one or two issues of other Spider-Man series. But he always looks really cool and that suit is always on point.
Yeah, I his him and Miles, in my opinion, have the best suits. And though this is actually my first 2099 series I've ever read of him. I've only ever seen him in like cartoons or like you said as a ensemble cast. But he kills it. He's it's really really good. I'd highly recommend it. Like I said,
Oh yeah,
I
I mean,
believe this is on the app
mhm.
too.
Oh yeah, you can just download. I like how this has just turned into an ad for Marvel Unlimited. Marvel, give us that money. We'll keep talking about your app. Give us the money. Anyways, I'll stop talking like that. You mentioned him. Miles Morales is also another. He's
Hmm.
Afro Latina, which is Black Latin, and he's I would say he is actually pretty in touch. I mean, he speaks Spanish. He engages. There's panels of him like doing a little cumbia dance. He's a pretty cool character, and he's also someone like Miguel that you can go into stores and pick up now, or he has a very long history back to the 2000s that you can like go on apps and like read now. So that's I think what I love to focus on is things that are accessible today,
Hmm.
and I think definitely Miguel and Miles are two characters. I reference them like they're people, two characters that you can pick up today right now and go grab, and that's I love that.
Yeah, and what I love particularly, like I'd love to see Miguel more in the spotlight, but that's I don't want to say that's like a deep cut, but he's more of like a B-lister. Like if you ask anyone, oh, do you know who Robin is? You and me would be like, which Robin you talking about? But the average Joe would be like, yeah, I know Robin. So like, I wish he was more like popular, but it's still cool just to
Mhm.
see another person of color, another like Hispanic Black community member just kind of be on the same level as Peter. So I'll take my wins where I
Yeah.
can, and it's a really fucking good win too.
And I do like that he just going back to Miguel. I like that he's in his own like little bubble because there's this weird conversation about like only Peter Parker can be Spider Man. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that on Twitter. So
Mhm.
I like that he's
Mhm.
kind of off in his own. He has his own cast of characters. He has his own thing, so you don't have to like dispute the validity of him being Spider Man because he is the Spider Man of his age.
Mhm.
So I love that for him to help like distinguish him.
I have one more thing to talk about why I love Miguel so much, and then I'll let you take the reins on something you want to talk about.
Okay.
I believe it was in Superior Spider-Man. For those who are unaware, Superior Spider-Man. I'm just gonna give a quick rundown. Peter kind of ends up dying virtually. It's weird, and Doc Ock takes control of his body and becomes Spider-Man. And arguably, there's an argument to be made that he becomes a better Spider-Man. He like stops crime, yada yada yada, but it comes at a price. Um, what really made me fall in love with Superior Spider-Man, no, for all the listeners, because this is an audio only. Noah
I just pulled
is
out the comic where Superior Spider-Man and Miguel are hanging out.
so
So
what had happens is that Miguel O'Hara's again the Spider-Man of the future comes to the past. He's in the future and he's like, who the fuck is fucking with the timeline? Like this should not be happening. And he goes back in time to like the present day and just kind of like kicks a bunch of ass and fixes stuff. And that's what I really liked about him. That's when I fell in love. I was like, damn, this dude's like the fucking time police. I love it. Okay, that's it. Noah, I'll let you talk about something.
No, he really did come Terminator on his ass and be like, who are you? You're not Peter." And then Doc Ock in Peter's mind was like, don't worry about it. Just go back to your own time." And then he just went back. But it was a fun appearance. It was one of the first times I ever read him.
Mhm.
But if we're jumping on to me talking about characters, I think
It could be anything. It
kind
could be
of
shows, whatever you want.
uh we're kind of sticking to comics because that's what we know. Well, you're more a video game, I'm more of a book person, but we meet in the middle with comics. So I guess I'll if we're diving into that more, I guess I'll say a very interesting character that we can talk about is the Brazilian Wonder Girl Yara Flor,
She's like
who's at a
super
very
new, right?
she's very new. She's came out 2021. And I think what's interesting about her is that she had so much hype when she was first coming out. Her first DC did a whole like what if future type thing where they just pitched a bunch of characters and scenarios. Some of them are sticking, some of them aren't. But one of the characters was Yara Flor, and like her issues sold out. They had to do reprints, they had to do like new number ones. And then she came out with her series and it went for 7 issues and then it got canceled. And then everyone's like, "What happened? What's gonna happen?" And then there was rumors of her getting her own show on the CW, but then I don't know if you guys know, but the CW is terrible at managing things, so that show fell through. And then she's just kind of in limbo. She's just appearing in other books right now. So it's interesting because I do enjoy her story because her story is that she was as a young girl, her mother was part of an Amazon tribe and her mother was killed and she was whisked away off to the United States. So it could kind of parallel some of those refugee stories that we've seen from South American countries. And then as like I believe she's like a 20-year-old, I don't know her age. Ages are pointless in comics unless you're a child. She comes back as like an adult to kind of reconnect and find not even like a relative, but kind of find herself. And the moment she steps on land, every Amazon and every god is like, "Oh no, we need to get this bitch out of here. Like this is she should
Yee.
not be here. She has to leave." Like some Amazon tribes send assassins. They're just like, "You gotta go. You being on this land is nothing but trouble." But then she shows up and she like discovers her. She has like this. She has a one woman lasso, but it's like a bola, so she can like throw it to wrap around people. And she finds like some mythical creatures native to Brazil, and then she kind of comes into her own and she kind of at first is lied to by some gods, but she kind of like breaks through and kind of forms her own identity. And it's about I believe a 6 issue. I think there's a seventh, but don't quote me on that. But it's like a 6 7 issue, and I think it's pretty solid. I know some people aren't the biggest fans of her, which for I don't know why. Some of the claims I kind of refute, but she's like a character that came and went, and it's very odd. And I hope she gets a new series somewhere. But I enjoy her a lot, and I guess that's just one of the Chicano Hispanic figures. No, she's not Chicano; she's Hispanic. I made the difference. I said earlier. Just cut all that. Anyways, she's one of the characters that I weirdly attached myself to, and it feels like she's gonna become one of those like sort of like Miguel, where they showed up and they were cool, but they're kind of like on the fringes of the culture, and I feel I just enjoy her. I don't know. I she's just one of the first characters that come to mind when I think Hispanic superheroes, even
What
though there
what's
are a bunch.
what's kind of like a bittersweet moment like that? Let's say if they do kind of decide to just have her on the outskirts, it's cool because you could virtually do whatever the fuck you want with that character. But the downside is you never get to see him interact with like Wonder Woman, Superman. You know, you never get to see him with the core like
Yeah,
cast.
like she's in an event right now. There's an event called I think it's called Dark Crisis or something, and it's
Yeah.
some big event. And she's there. She's hanging out with I believe Nightwing and Alan Scott Green Lantern. Like she's there to help, and Superman, John Kent. But I don't know if she's gonna appear in anything else after it. So it's just you get to see your favorite, but then after the event, you're like, well, what now?
Another great show I could recommend. Well, I'm gonna jump ship instead of talking about comics. It's a show on Hulu. I've told Noah about this, and our buddy Rudy, friend of the show. It's called This Fool. It's quickly become one of my favorite fucking shows. Um, think if you guys have ever seen Ted Lasso, which like Ted Lasso is like known for having like it's super hard. It's like Mr. Rogers, I guess you could say. If Mr. Rogers was like a cohesive story instead of just telling you how to be a good person. Yeah, but it's like that in a sense where it's just a feel good show, and the basic premise of this fool is that I'm bad at names for shows, but I believe his name is Julio. He runs a program that helps prisoners get acclimated back into society, and the program is called Hugs Not Thugs. And what I love about this show is that it's all Hispanic Latino cast members. Like not all of them, but like 90% of the cast is like either Hispanic Latino, and majority of the show was either filmed in South Central, I believe. If I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure though. Don't take me verbatim. And the rest of it, I think, was shot in like Studio City. For those who are unaware, it's like Burbank area, California talk. And but it was like it's very rooted in Hispanic Latino culture, and like every episode it's like you're laughing your ass off, you're kind of crying a bit, you're like, oh man, this is such a good show. And then like to kind of like balance the thing, within the first episode, Julio is in charge of getting his cousin Luis, who just got out of prison, and he's reforming him. So you see like how there's like subtle commentary of like how prison and like how just being in like like that toxic mindset sometimes, not saying that it's everybody, but sometimes people come out of prison, and because the prison system is it's super fucked up, people sometimes come out worse than they came in. And there's underlying parts where it's like Luis is struggling, he's like, man, fuck that, this is like this ain't manly stuff to be making cupcakes, like if my
Yeah,
fool saw
you
me
get so
doing
fed
this.
up with that. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's super 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 good. And like as someone who's like getting like back into touch with his Hispanic roots, there's stuff right there I'm like laughing at. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of like that Captain America meme, like, oh, I understood that. And it's like it's super it's super super good. And even if you aren't Hispanic, like kind of going back to what I was saying about
Mhm.
my girlfriend earlier, she's white. She fucking loves this show too. Like
Mhm.
it's super fucking good. Like I'd highly recommend it anybody watch it, because it's like, especially too, like I said, most of the cast is like Chicano, Hispanic, Latino, and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
super great.
And
It's
that's
a
that's a really
really
cool subject matter.
it's a really good representation too. So yeah, but that's a show
Yeah,
I could recommend, and
and I love
I
that
hope
because
season
often
two.
when you think I'm sorry, go ahead. You
I'm
season
sorry.
2?
I'm
That's
hoping for a season two. I'm hoping for a season two.
fingers crossed for a season 2, everyone. Everyone listening, cross your fingers, cross your legs, your toes for a season 2. But I love when you think of Spanish language media like films or TV, people's minds, they more often than not they go to like novellas or like drug cartels, like or like drama or dating or food shows. And I mean, like in to prep for this, I looked at Netflix top Hispanic Spanish language shows, and a lot of them were like Man in High Castle type, like El Chapo or like food documentaries and stuff. So it's always nice to see a show like that tackles different subject matter, especially one of people coming out of the prison system, because that it's a complex thing. Like people come out. Yeah, I like how you corrected yourself because you're gonna say arguably, but then you said no, it's fucked up. It's the prison system in this country is crazy, and in a lot of countries, it's even worse. So it's just coming out and rehabilitating yourself is something that's really cool, and the fact that you're able to deliver it in like a funny, heartwarming package that anyone can watch and relate to and understand is really cool. I mean, I've been meaning to watch it. I have a million things I've been told to watch every
like
day, so I just haven't had the chance.
just to kind of give people an idea, I'm gonna spoil an episode right here. Okay, so there the
So
character.
spoilers, don't
Yeah,
yell at us if you're
I I, be-
spoiled.
I believe this is like episode 2 or 3. It's early into the
Oh,
show.
okay, that feels like their fault. I don't know.
uh what happens is that one of the main characters, Luis, is talking about, yeah, the good old days, all the homies had my back, but there was this guy, we hated him. And I forget the guy's name. Again, I'm bad with, oh, my alarm's going off, sorry about that if you guys heard that. But it's like it was this guy who's black, and he was like, yeah, like the black gang and the Mexican gang are always fighting each other, blah 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 blah. But they're like 40s. They're 40s, 50s. They're old now at this point, you know? And that's what Julio's trying to tell me. He's like, "Fool, you're old. Like no one gives a shit about that. You're an old timer." And so he runs in, let's just call him John. I don't remember his name. He runs into John and he was like, "Hey Luis, fuck you. John, fuck you." And they're like, "Oh, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to get the boys back together and we're going to have a good old rumble." And so the whole episode, Luis is trying to go find his old gang member friends to try to help him. And he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go fight John." It turns out one of his friends died in a car crash, and one of his other friends is like too old to fight. The other one doesn't want, and like they're all like, "Bro, like I'm way too old for this," and like no one backs him up. And then like John, on the other hand, the only person he could find to back him up is like his grandpa, who he took out of a retirement home to help him with the rumble. And then like when the rumble's supposed to happen, it's like it's this very misfit cast of people, and they're just like, "Bro, what the fuck are we doing? We're too old for this. Like this is some bullshit. Like it doesn't even matter." And it ends with them just kind of hugging and getting along. And then where they were supposed to rumble, literally like 20 feet from them, is some teenagers getting down, and they just like hug each other and watch the teenagers like beat the shit out of each other, and as they're commentating on that fight, which is really funny. But yeah, it's
You
just
know
stuff
that,
like that.
and that also feels like a bit of a commentary on like machismo. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
no, a
toxic
hundred percent, a hundred
Spanish
percent.
masculinity. Yeah, and it's just like you get too old to rumble, man. You just gotta move past that. Like that's the old shit. You gotta grow out of that. That's kid shit. Let me tell you right now.
Yeah, and that's
Whenever,
and
mhm.
there's a lot of stuff I like skimmed over, so like there's a lot of like little twists and little turns of humor, but that it's just shit like that. And I'm like, oh man, it's such a good show.
And that's always funny because it's just it's such whenever I see like teens get like aggressive, like, oh, we're gonna fight, or like whenever I hear stuff, I'm just like, that's such a childish thing to do. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh, a
always see them
hundred
like
percent.
freaking kids. And
Um,
it's always funny to me to see.
do you have any other like do you have any books, shows, anything else you want to recommend? Because I know it doesn't have to necessarily be a comic. I'm jumping ship to other topics right now.
I guess one book that I found very interesting that's more so Chicano and less Hispanic, but I feel like it could apply to anyone that comes to this country. It's called Pocho by Jose Antonio Villarreal. And Pocho is kind of like slang for like an Americanized Mexican or Americanized Spanish speaking person. And I think it's an interesting book because it kind of shows kind of the birth of the Chicano movement and how when someone comes to this country and how the let's just say in general when someone comes to this country their ideals they try to impose on their children can never truly be carbon copied because just the culture in America twists everything and sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. It kind of depends on your own opinion. So I think it's an interesting book if you're anyone that's come from a country and you're first generation and it's kind of that clashing ideals. Because I know a lot of people that come from South America, that come from Latin countries that come up, their parents have such a different idea of what masculinity, what femininity is, what honor is, what respect is. And then when they come to America, it's such a different experience raising kids here because the culture is so different that people become Americanized. So I think it was a very interesting book seeing like this machismo dad raise like this son who kind of realizes like, wow, my dad ain't shit. Like he's kind of awful and my mom's kind of greedy and why are they together in the first place?
Hmm.
And he kind of has to like look at his own identity. And I think that's interesting for anybody that comes here and is first generation. They could probably relate to that. And that's just one of the other books that come to mind. And honestly, I've been trying to fill my bookshelf with more queer writers, with more black writers, with more Hispanic writers, just because there's a lot of old white men, there's a lot of fantasy, a lot of Lord of the Rings, a lot of Game of Thrones.
You
So
know,
I'm trying to
also,
like learn some
also
of my
to
bookshelf.
like stipulate that there's nothing wrong with that too. Like if you have a shelf full of like old white men, like when Noah was saying, I have none but Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, yada, yada.
Mhm.
Don't feel bad, don't feel obligated, but it's nice
Yeah.
to educate yourself too.
Yeah, we're just calling back to the fact that we want to get more in touch with
Hmm.
our identities. So I want to kind of fill my bookshelf with more varied writers with different backgrounds, you know.
And you know what too? This is gonna sound so fucking cheesy, but it's very true. Uh, if you are someone, again, I don't know anyone's financial situation listening, but if you can't afford to get these books, watch these movies for whatever reason, no matter what it is, a great resource, which I feel like the older we get, the more we forget about this, is the
The
public.
library. I knew you were gonna
Yes.
say the library.
Yes, yes, yes. The public fucking library. Okay, you could get a membership card for free, long as you turn in your books. Like turn in your books on time. You don't owe them any money, and there's a plethora of knowledge right there. You could watch so many movies. You could yeah. Just the library is fantastic. I don't go as much as I
Mhm.
gone maybe like one time within like a year. I am very much a hypocrite on this matter. I understand, but for people who may not be able to afford or for whatever reason, library is a fantastic resource to catch up and read Hispanic knowledge, Latino knowledge. There's so much you can do there, and just yeah, if like I said, if you're short on funds,
Mhm.
library. You got anything to add on that?
All free. Lewis and I, if you're listening to this podcast, Lewis and I are your fathers, and as our children, we will tell you to do as we say, not as we do, and to go down to the library because it is free. And guess what, fun friends, free Wi-Fi and air conditioning, and that's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
uh, I think the last show that's coming to mind right now, just because I'm watching it at the moment too, and also I'm a big fan of the franchise in general.
Oh my
There's
god,
a
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna interrupt you right now. Diego Luna in Andor is coming out soon. I can't believe we
that's
haven't talked about it at all. Literally a Hispanic lead, and we didn't mention it this entire
oh yeah,
podcast.
what's coming out? What's this?
Oh my god.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
let's warrant some talk real
And
quick.
that we have Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian.
To be
Mhm.
fair,
Okay.
Pedro Pascal and Mandalorian wears a helmet like half the time. So you
Okay. Can I continue what I was about to say?
go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it.
Pedro Pascal in Mandalorian, Diego Luna in freaking Andor, and then Rosario Dawson in Ahsoka. I mean, Star Wars is becoming very
Mm-hmm.
Latin. It's becoming very Hispanic, and I love that for us.
And
That's all I have
we're
to say. You can go back to your
okay.
rant, but I decided to throw my
Honorable
right now.
mention too. We're throwing Oscar Isaac. Fucking love that guy.
Oh right, Oscar Isaac. Well, that's a whole other.
That's another franchise.
Oh my god. Okay, one last rant before you go back to your
Go
thing.
for it, go for it.
I can't believe in freaking. I don't think anyone likes Rise of Skywalker, or whatever. But the fact that they made part of his backstory to be a drug runner, like
That's
what?
right. I forgot about
They're like,
that.
oh, I used to run spice in this place, and you're just like, why'd you turn your Hispanic character into a drug runner? What's up with that?
I
Why are you doing that?
I think they probably try to go for like the Han Solo thing, but like it wasn't a 1-to-1.
Yeah, Han Solo didn't run only spice. He was like he ran cargo, but it wasn't like explicitly like spice. I don't know. It's just weird.
Uh,
I don't know, man. But then again, we could spend all day talking about what's wrong with Rise of Skywalker. So
nothing. It's perfect.
okay, wait, no, before we go on to other things. So it's Ray Skywalker, right?
Yeah, that Ray Sidious.
Not it's Ray Palpatine.
Oh yeah, there we go.
No, it's Ray Skywalker. Okay, we can move on because that is correct. She chose that name. She's honoring her masters. Let's continue. Let's move on.
God
Let's
damn
move
it.
on.
That was one of my biggest things at the end that pissed me off. I'm like, I get it. I get the sentimental value behind all that. I'm not okay. Listen, I want to make this very clear because the discourse when you're talking about particularly the new trilogy, it's very, very racy.
Very dramatic, very like
Yeah,
all or nothing. Like you can't have
mhm,
a debate about it because everyone's like, it's wrong or it's right. Like you can't
yeah.
talk about nuances.
And then it gets very murky too because people hate on Ray for being a woman. People hate. I'm not. I like Ray as a character. Just be my personal preference. It's just me. I just think she should
Mhm,
have, instead of taking the Skywalker name and saying I am
mhm.
a Skywalker, she should have said I am a Palpatine, and then showed, hey, people are capable of change. People can, like I want to turn this name around. Yes, I will be a part of that change.
You know what? I'm not even gonna attack this from a story angle. from a PR angle, going around calling yourself Ray Palpatine is not gonna let anyone trust you. You go around as Ray Skywalker, you're taking over the rebellion. You're taking over the Senate. That's all I gotta say. Like the Skywalkers, Luke and Leia. I don't know. Well, Leia didn't really go by Skywalker, but she had the blood in her. But let's move on because we can see we already got stuck. We already got stuck, so we need to move on. What were you gonna say before we got stuck in here?
Oh
Please take
god
us
damn.
away from here. Get us
All
back on the main road. This pit stop is awful.
right. Okay. So like I was saying, I'm a big fan of the franchise. It just came out on Netflix. It is the Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime. For those who are unaware, Cyberpunk is a giant franchise. It's based on a board game. It's actually really interesting history. Based on a board game and then adapted into like it continues in a video game, and then from the video game they have a bunch of comic spin-offs, and now they have an anime. And none of the comics nor the video games or the anime I mean like really tie into, well, they all kind of tie into, but like they don't directly impact the game, so they're all kind of like standalone stories. So you could jump into any of them and just kind of completely understand it. Because my girlfriend's never played Cyberpunk and she's watching the anime completely, loves it. But why I'm bringing it up is, yes, we're talking about proper representation and stuff like that. Um, this one it's all about kind of being a criminal, but that's this is I don't really know how to like properly phrase this, but it's just good storytelling, I guess you could say. You kind of know, you kind of get what I'm saying right here.
You're flopping. I don't know what to tell you. You're
Yeah,
kind of
I'm flopping a bit because it's all about him like kind of becoming like a criminal and like
okay.
joining the
Okay.
underground syndicate.
Mhm,
But what I like about it is that the main character is his name's David Martinez, and it doesn't
mhm,
take a genius to realize, oh, this person's Hispanic, this person's Latino, and it's just
mhm,
like it's just cool seeing like just seeing another Hispanic, another like Latino in anime. 'Cause that's something you don't
mhm.
really see.
Yeah, that's true.
Although yes, they are becoming criminals. Uh, it's still it's still pretty fucking
Baby
cool.
steps. We do baby steps.
It's still pretty fucking cool nonetheless to see this dude like kick ass and take names. Like there's parts where he's just like there's like this dude punking him and he's a bitch and just like beats his ass up like yeah fuck him up and just stuff
He's
like that.
really excited.
Yeah, so I just like it's just so fucking good. It's such a good anime, and that's one of the things that resonates with me. And my girlfriend was having a conversation about this. We are having to talk about this. She was like, "Oh, how do you feel about the main character being Hispanic?" I'm like, "That's fucking awesome. I love it." And in the world of cyberpunk, everyone's more or less a criminal in one way or another. So it kind of it's fitting. Um, but it's fucking cool. It's such a good. I'm only like 3 episodes in at the moment, 3 to 4 episodes in, and really I highly recommend it. And if you're someone like myself, I know Noah here's an anime watcher too. You don't see too many Hispanics in anime, and to see a Hispanic kind of jump in, and the first episode really has like your your uh, your Hispanic family ties. It's like your mom and your dad looking out for you. Sort of. I'm not giving anything away, but I'm just kind of giving you basic plot points. Like yeah, your mom and your dad like they look out for you, this and that. Family comes first, sort of thing. That you as Hispanics grow up to learn and stuff like that. It very much touches on those roots, and there are specific parts of the show too, especially within like the first episode, the second episode. It's like he's talking to his mom, and he's like he's going to like this rich school, but they're even though he's going to a rich school that they have to pay for, they are struggling. The mom's working like triple quad shifts, never home, and he's like, "Mom, I never fucking see you. I'm getting bullied at school." And then she was like, and he's like, "You're telling me to climb up the ladder?" And then they have this back and forth where it's like, yeah, you don't think I get bullied at work too? You don't think people talk down to me? Like, you have to be the change that
That you
that
want to see in the world.
yeah, she was like, I want to see you climb this corporate ladder and you have to be a shining beacon, which is also, too, kind of heartbreaking when you see him fall into this criminal world. So I remember, I'm not going to give anything away, but like, my girlfriend, the first thing she said was like, damn. So he just straight up said, fuck my mom's wishes. it's,
That's what it sounds like.
but
It sounds
it's,
like a very sad tale.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
his mom did so much for him, and then he just kinda fell to the wayside.
yeah, and that's something you could take away too. It's like,
Yeah, that's something that
uh,
happens to a lot of people.
yeah, it's a lot of like subtle commentary where it's like, especially here, a lot of Hispanics. I don't want to say a lot, I don't want to stereotype people, but it's like, uh, the stereotype is like Hispanics fall into gangs and this and that, and it's easy to do that, and they follow that trope a little bit in the show too, and I'm diving, I'm looking at it from a deep lens right now, but if you kind of just want to take it at face value, you see this badass Hispanic kick ass and take names, and it's cool to see a fellow Hispanic Latino in anime. But yeah, that's really all the other stuff I got to recommend.
Mhm.
But anything else you want to recommend, or anything else you want to shine a light on, Noah?
No, there's nothing I can really think of at the moment, but, I would say that it's easier to find these things than you think. A quick Google search, a quick Instagram search, TikTok search, just use some keywords, Hispanic, music, show, whatever. It's so I feel like people think it might be daunting to kinda dive into this, but it's easier than one would think, and that's all I can really end this on,
Hmm.
of this train of thought, I mean.
Yeah, um, I also too, I know I said some stuff that was like, yeah, I'm sorry if I may have offended anybody too, or anything like that. I'm just, these are like,
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. You know what? If you guys are gonna be snowflakes about it, you better stop listening, because this is only for the real Moon. Fuck. I was trying to, what is like El Jefe? That's what I was thinking of. Damn it, I'm so white. I was gonna say these are for the El Jefes listening right now, like the big guys, like the king. And then I was just like, damn it, I already my. I'm gonna go cry. Excuse me.
but yeah, like this is like stuff that as a Hispanic you see, and I know not every Hispanic Latino story is a 1-to-1. So if like fellow Hispanic Latinos you felt maybe a little called, you're like, oh, that's some bullshit what she said. Everyone's upbringing is a bit different, so I apologize. And but my main goal of this episode in particular, when I pitched it to Noah, was that like just want to shine a light. We want to show the importance of representation, and like how this is such a good thing that we're seeing representation across all medias. We gave you comic books, we gave you animes, we gave you shows, we gave you books. I didn't give you any video games, but Far Cry 6 is a fucking great video game for Hispanic Latino representation. It's fucking phenomenal. That got me listening to a lot of like Spanish music. There you go. You got video games too now. And
Yeah, we got a whole plethora of media, and I was joking. Uh, this is just our experience and our
mhm,
own understanding, and what we say is in no way trying to invalidate other people's experience.
that's what I
We're
was
just
trying to
kind of
say.
speaking on what we know, and that's
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, and if there's anything else we could like leave you on, is just support Hispanic Latino shops, artists, everything in between. You know, it's there's a whole world out there of fucking amazing culture, amazing food. I will die on this hill. Mexican food is fucking amazing. It's like that, and Japanese food, in my opinion, are like S tier food. And go yeah, that's the final thought. Go get some Mexican food. You'll thank me later if you've ever fucking had
And
it.
Japanese food at the same time.
Oh no, that's a terrible idea. That is a fucking
Just like
terrible.
an asada taco in one hand and sushi in the other, and you just start like double fisting it, and you're just like, ah, da, 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 da.
But
You're gonna have an interesting afternoon after that. That's all I gotta say.
yeah, but we hope you guys found some like insight. Or we hope perhaps we, even if it's only one person, we like educated you a bit. And yeah, I think that's where we're gonna end things on. My name is Luis Gutierrez. Thank you for listening. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Luis Gutierrez, and you can also find my work. If you guys are curious, I I work as a freelancer for GameSpot, and I work as a freelancer for IGN. Find my work over there on those sites. And if you guys found anything insightful, I still have the Geek Press login stuff. I just never used it. You could just DM me. You can DM the Geek Press. I'm not gonna plug the Geek Press this episode, even
Or
though
drop
this
the
is.
Twitter handle so they can DM you.
Yeah. So the Twitter handle for the Geek Press is at Da Geek Press. It's a DA because the Geek Press was there. It was taken.
Your personal Twitter
Uh,
handle. If you guys follow Lewis at his personal Twitter handle, you can see him link all the stories that he writes in his feed.
yeah, I do that. It's a lot of shit posting though too. Uh, but
Yeah, mix of both. It's fine.
Noah, you want to plug yourself really quick?
Yes. I'm Noah Garcia. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Noah is Garcia. It's spelled the way it sounds. And if you want to follow my photography, I do photography on the side. You can go on Instagram at Noah Garcia underscore photography for that there.
Until then, guys, we will see you later. The goal of this podcast again, I guess you could call this season 2. You know, that's a fitting name.
We got renewed for a second season. Oh my god.
Yeah,
It only
this
took a
is
year. You know what? Netflix time. We're on Netflix time.
yeah. Our goal, really quick too, before we officially sign off. We're gonna record once a week. Obviously, and our goal is to have an episode up once a week. The date is to be determined. We haven't really talked that out yet. But yeah, we're gonna try to do this again weekly. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until then, peace.